By the time I realized my neighbor wasn't pointing at me, something in the shadows behind me had already stepped out. I moved into this top-floor apartment because it was cheap and quiet. The only thing that always felt a little off was the building right opposite mine. The gap between us is so narrow, it feels like you could almost reach out and touch the windows across the way. At first, I didn't pay it any attention, but after a few days, I noticed a pattern. Every single night, exactly at 10 p.m., the lights in the apartment directly across from mine would turn on. And there he would be, a man. He would stand right in the center of the room, facing my window. He never moved. He never sat down. He never turned on the TV. He just stood there, perfectly still, staring straight ahead. His arms were always at his sides, his head tilted slightly forward, like a statue waiting for something. For the first week, I thought it was weird. I thought maybe he was just strange, or maybe he was exercising or something. But no, he just stood there. Is he looking at me? I wondered one night. I waved my hand. I pressed my face against the glass and made a face. Nothing. He didn't blink. He didn't move a muscle. He just stared. I tried to ignore it. I closed my curtains, but curiosity is a strange thing. Every night, I found myself peeking through the gap. And every night, he was there. Same spot, same time, same pose. It became like a game I played with myself. Is he there tonight? Yes, he is. Then came the night I couldn't sleep. It was 3 a.m. The whole world was silent. I got up to get a glass of water, and as I walked past the window, I stopped. The lights across the street were on. They were never on this late. He was always gone by midnight. I looked closer. He was still there. But this time, he wasn't standing still. He was moving. Very slowly. Painfully slowly. I watched, my breath catching in my throat, as he started to raise his right arm. It wasn't a normal movement. It was stiff, like a robot waking up. Up, up, up it went, until his arm was pointing straight out toward me. And then, his finger extended. He was pointing directly at my window, directly at me. I froze. My heart started hammering against my ribs. "What do you want?" I whispered. Then, he did something that made my blood run cold. He opened his mouth. He opened it wide, wider than any human mouth should ever open. It looked like it was splitting his face in half. And then, slowly, he smiled. A huge, jagged, terrifying grin that stretched from ear to ear. I stepped back, terrified. I wanted to run away, to hide, but my feet felt glued to the floor. But then I realized something. He wasn't pointing at my face. He was pointing over my shoulder. He was pointing into my room. A cold chill ran down my spine, colder than ice. Slowly, shaking all over, I turned my head to look behind me, into the darkness of my own apartment. The hallway was black. The corners were full of shadows. I looked everywhere. Under the bed, behind the sofa, in the doorway. There was nothing there. The room was empty. I let out a huge breath, laughing nervously. Oh my God, I'm going crazy. It's just some weirdo playing games. I turned back around to the window, ready to shout at him, ready to tell him to get lost. But when I looked across the street, the man was gone. He had vanished, but the lights were still on. And because he wasn't standing there anymore, I could see the wall behind him. Written on the wall, in big, red, dripping letters that looked wet and fresh, were 3 words: I am inside. I stared at it. My mind couldn't process it. I am inside. That was when I heard it. A small sound right behind me. I didn't want to turn around. I didn't want to know, but I had to. I turned. Standing right there in my room, between me and the door, was a man. He was tall, too tall. His limbs were too long, and he was tilting his head to the side, exactly like the man across the street. "You were watching the window," he whispered. His voice sounded like dry leaves scraping together. "So you didn't notice me come through the door?" I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. He stepped closer. I could smell rot and damp earth coming off him. "The man across the street?" He giggled softly. "That was just a reflection, silly. Or maybe it was me. Maybe I am everywhere." He opened his mouth wide, just like the one in the window, the huge, impossible smile. "You kept looking at him," he hissed, stepping into the light. "But you should have been looking at the shadows in your room." I followed his gaze. My eyes darted to the corner where the wardrobe met the wall. That's when I saw it. It wasn't just shadow. The darkness was moving. It was writhing. And as my eyes adjusted, I realized that the shadow wasn't empty space at all. It was made of things. Hundreds of things. Hands. Dozens of pale, bony hands were pressed flat against the wall, fingers splayed, reaching out from the blackness. And between them, faces. Faces pressed against the invisible surface, eyes wide open, mouths screaming silently, all staring right at me. They had been there the whole time, watching, waiting. "Do you like my collection?" the tall man whispered, stepping aside to let me see better. "They are the ones who lived here before you. They like to look out of the window too." The walls seemed to breathe. The hands twitched. The faces pressed harder, desperate to get out or desperate to get in. "We don't need windows to see," the man said. He raised his hand, and his fingers began to elongate, twisting like black vines. "Because we are already inside you." He reached out and touched my chest, right over my heart. I felt cold. So cold. I looked down and saw my own hands starting to turn pale, starting to flatten against my sides. I felt my body becoming stiff, heavy, still. "No," I tried to say, but my mouth wouldn't move. "Shh," the man cooed, his voice fading into 1,000 whispers. "It's time for your shift now. Stand still and don't blink."